Hello everyone and welcome to the first emōkō question and answer. Basically, I will be answering questions about emotional combat or the training that I call emōkō. And it can be about the concept, it can be about different drills, it could be about theory, it can be really any question you have related to dealing with a wide variety of emotional conflicts that I call emotional combat. And so I will be answering questions that you give to me and also questions that I give to myself. Ideally, I get more questions from you than from myself. So if you listen to this episode and you have any questions, please reach out to me. I'll be answering 10 questions and I'll chop them up into 2.5-minute clips that I'll put up on YouTube and other social media platforms. Or you can listen to the full episode on YouTube or on your podcast player. So I forgot to hit the start button. As you can see, there's a timer up in the top right corner, 2 minutes and 30 seconds. And this intro will be a lot less than that. But we can go ahead and get started and go to the first question. So first question. Question 1 of 10. What are the 3 steps? Okay, so first off, the 3 steps are step 1, truth. Step 2, fair play. Step 3, love. Why? And then I'll explain more about them. So I have a very good friend whose mentor was from Sri Lanka and does a lot of work in Ayurvedic health. And I remember listening to him speak once many years ago, and he said that there are 3 things we're trying to balance at all times in life: truth, fair play, and love. And then when I started emotional self-defense, I was thinking, what if to make sure I don't forget any of those steps, I just put them into order. Step 1, truth. Step 2, fair play. Step 3, love. So I won't forget any. And so the concept, let me go deeper into them. Step 1, truth. Tell the truth about how you're actually feeling in the moment. So this is telling the truth to somebody else, but also telling the truth to ourselves. Because when we don't speak the truth, they don't hear us and we don't hear ourselves. And so step 1 is about truth. Step 2 is about fair play. Tell the other person how we imagine they might be feeling. Not how we know they're feeling, but we imagine they might be. I know you're angry. No, maybe they're not feeling angry. Maybe that's not the word they associate with it. So the point of this is to step out of our experience and to imagine the other person's experience. And often it can be very disarming for them when you tell them that you were even thinking about it. Because a lot of times we don't realize people are thinking about how we feel. Step 3 is love. To say one thing to connect with love. This can be, thank you, I'm sorry, I hope you have a good day, I care about you, etc. If you've done step 1 and 2 really well, step 3 should come pretty naturally. If you don't do step 1 and 2 that well, step 3 doesn't work so well. So the idea of these 3 steps is really to make sure that we practice connecting with ourselves first and then connecting with the other person and oscillating back and forth. And then we get to step 3 and we feel even more connected to ourselves. We feel even more connected to the other person. I hope that makes sense for you. I can go much more into this in other questions if you have them. Like, for example, there are other words we can use. It could be me, you, and we, etc., etc. But that'll be for the next question, or next question session. Okay, question number 2. How does the framing emotional combat help you? So many times over the last year or so, I think I've become overwhelmed. And framing it as emotional combat helps me in a few different ways. One way is that it helps me realize I am overwhelmed. I am dealing with a lot of conflicts in the moment. So it helps me break out of the tunnel vision that this specific conflict that's right in my face is the one that is driving all of my pain, anguish, exhaustion. Another thing that it helps me with, and I've realized lately, is that it helps me realize that it's a long-term game. For example, I think I can put a lot of pressure on myself to figure out a solution now so that the problem disappears, so that the conflict disappears. But what emotional combat, the framing helps me realize is that it's a fight. It always will be a fight. If I resolve one conflict, another conflict will pop up. If I improve in one way, maybe something else will happen in life and throw me in a different way. So it helps me relax and realize it's about consistently showing up and staying in the fight and not giving up. almost like a boxing match that has infinite rounds, or a marathon, the whole marathon example, but marathons end. So it's almost like an infinite marathon, like I don't know if that helps people, but for me, it helps relieve the pressure of, I need to figure this out now, because there's no figuring it out. There's always going to be challenges and fights and conflicts. Another way it helps me is that when I go into my own emotional combat, I'm going through a lot. It's very hard for me not to think that other people are also going through emotional combat, to think that they're also experiencing an overwhelming amount of attacks and conflicts in their life. So the framing helps me go into my own experience, broaden it, and then realize other people are going through that and broaden my realization of their experience as well. I think that this is what the framing does for me. I'm sure it does other things. I'm curious how it lands for you, and I'm wondering if this is more of the framing or the training that I've done, but I'm curious to hear your answers as well. Question 3 of 10. What do you say to people who don't like the word combat? My first answer is yes, they probably don't like to fight, and if they don't like to fight, they probably need to train in how to fight. So many people say, oh, I don't want to fight, or I don't like conflict. If you don't want to fight or you don't like conflict, life is filled with fights and conflicts. It means when the conflicts arise, you probably just run away. Or, so instead of flight, you probably fight in a way, but to squash the conflict, to end the conflict, to end the fight. Instead of engaging with the fight, instead of staying in the boxing match, staying in the dance, however you want to call it. So my first reaction is, if people don't like the word combat, or they didn't like self-defense, or they think it's inherently advocating violence, not so much. It's more about learning how to fight, and learning how to fight can be really good for all of us, because think about some of the top black belts. They're very good at resolving fights before they become very violent. And so that would be my first answer to that. What else about combat? To reemphasize that it's not about hurting other people. It's actually about helping other people. And maybe a way to look at it is you have somebody, you have people in the military who are out there trying, it seems like they're trying to kill and hurt the other people, but you also have people that are like medics. And medics in the military are there to help take care of people in the military. I mean, you could even argue that a lot of people in the military, their goal is to protect, not necessarily to attack and hurt. And so even in combat, the goal is to try to reduce casualties, to reduce violence towards other people. And so I think if we could learn these skills, we could learn how to do it before it becomes so violent and antagonistic. And if they don't like the word, again, maybe curious for them to delve into the practice a little more and see if the drills and the skills that they gain help them in their life, and maybe they'll start to like or feel more confident dealing with conflict and feel more confident in fighting, and maybe not be so afraid of the word, or I'm not sure. It depends on what emotional reaction they have to the word. So maybe that's just one answer to the fear. Question 4 of 10. How do you define an emotional attack? The way I would define an emotional attack is anything that makes me want to distance myself emotionally from the other person or thing. It could even be myself. So a lot of attacks I would define as attacks of hate, or attacks of indifference, or attacks of love. So the obvious ones are rejection, I feel rejected, or betrayal, I feel betrayed, or so those are some of the most obvious kind of hate ones, or maybe guilt tripping, I feel guilt tripped. Another one is attack of indifference. I feel ghosted or ignored, or as if I don't even exist, neglected. And then there are also some things I would call like hate, attacks of love. Praised, idolized, complimented, put on a pedestal. Some of these things can make us feel more emotionally distant or less connected to ourselves or to the other person or thing. And so that's how I would define an emotional attack. I don't think they are objective things. I think it's a subjective experience. I think basically as we feel attacked, it's us perceiving that the other person often doesn't care about us. That they don't care about us, meaning they don't know we exist, or they're intentionally trying to hurt us. So often about the other person's intentions. And so for an example would be, if somebody punches you in the face while you're walking down the sidewalk, you might think, this person hates me. But if somebody trips and punches you in the face, you might think, this person just tripped. But it's still the same force of being punched in the face. It's probably why we often forgive children, because we think they don't know any better. The kid who bites me is just exploring. He's not, or maybe the cat who bites me is just exploring. They don't know what they're doing. Whereas an adult does it, it was intentional. So a lot of it is about processing and connecting to our emotions to break through this idea that their intention was to attack us. Next question, question 5. What is the FeelWhen drill and how might it help me? Okay, so I have a wide variety of drills that I've created, and I will create so many more. And so the FeelWhen is a question format that is very simple and can be much more complex if you want. The very simple version is, how do you feel when you think about blank? Or how do you feel when you blank? So, how do you feel when you think about recording a podcast? How do you feel when you think about going to school again? How do you feel when you think about getting married? How do you feel when you smell a rose? Things like this. And so it's a very simple concept. It can also be expanded. Like you can choose a specific theme. So instead, like for example, I can focus on finances. How do you feel when you think about having a lot of money in the bank? How do you feel when you think about having no money in the bank? How do you feel when you think about lending money to somebody? How do you feel when you think about borrowing money from somebody else? How do you feel when you think about asking somebody for money? How do you feel when you think about, et cetera, et cetera? So you can focus on a theme. You can also put this into the format of step 2. So that's step 1, asking you, but it can be step 2. How do you imagine this person might feel when they blank? And the idea of this is to imagine different contexts that people might be in and to try to associate different emotions to these contexts. So to recognize that in one context, I may feel one way and somebody may feel a different way. But it also helps me explore the variety of feelings that I have related to various contexts. So it's a very quick and easy drill. I've recorded some audio drills you can listen to on the website, or you can just do this to yourself, or you could do it talking with a friend or family member. You can just go back and forth, so you can do 3 questions to them, 3 questions to you. You can answer out loud, you can answer in your own head. It's really just practicing answering how we feel related to different contexts. Very simple, can actually be pretty intense at times, but really good practice, I think. Next question, question 6 of 10. What is the OneThing drill and how might it help me? Okay, so I have another drill, another question format that I call OneThing. Again, very simple. What's one thing that currently makes me feel blank? What's another thing that currently makes me feel, sorry. Oh man, screwed that up. What's one thing that currently makes me feel blank? What's one thing that currently makes me feel another thing? So it could be, what's one thing that currently makes me feel sad? What's one thing that currently makes me feel happy? What's one thing that currently makes me feel proud? What's one thing that currently makes me feel angry? What's one thing that currently makes me feel confused? Etc., etc. And just like the FeelWhen drill, you can make it more complex or more specific by saying, when I think about, or when you think about, when I think about my work situation, what's one thing that currently makes me feel excited? When I think about my work situation, what's one thing that currently makes me feel confused? When I think about my work situation, what's one thing that currently makes me feel loved? Etc., etc. So you can choose specific themes, and like when you think about blank, or when I think about blank, what's one thing that currently makes me feel blank? Again, just like FeelWhen, this could be a step 1 drill or a step 2 drill. Step 2 is what's one thing that you imagine might currently make this person feel blank? And then you can also put that in the format of, when this person thinks about, maybe it's starting a podcast. When this person thinks about starting a podcast, what's one thing that you imagine might currently make them feel nervous? When this person thinks about starting a podcast, what's one thing that you imagine might currently make them feel strong? Etc., etc. So the underlying concept of this is that often we can get very stuck in one emotion when we think about one context. So if I'm thinking maybe about my podcast, I can think just about the excitement of doing it, and I can forget the fear. The fear is there, but I'm overlooking it. The nervousness is there, but I'm overlooking it. The sadness might be there, but I'm overlooking it. So this can help us understand the different emotions that we feel regarding a particular context. Oops, I think I went over time on that one. So we'll go to the next one. Question 7 of 10. What is the AnotherThing drill and how might it help me? Okay, the AnotherThing drill is very similar to the OneThing drill. Another question format, repeated questions, and it is very simple. What's one thing that currently makes you feel blank? What's another thing that currently makes you feel blank? What's another thing that currently makes you feel blank? So for example, which I used the other day. I was feeling overwhelmed by fear, and I said to myself, what's one thing that currently makes me feel scared? What's another thing that currently makes me feel scared? What's another thing that currently makes me feel scared? What's another thing that currently makes me feel scared? So the essence of this drill is that very often we'll get into one context and we think that that context is bringing all of that emotion. So for example, if I am asking someone for money, that is something that can bring up a lot of fear. And I can assume all the fear I'm experiencing right now is because I'm asking somebody for money. But maybe that's not the case. Maybe I'm also afraid of something that's happening in my body and I need to go to the doctor to get checked out. Maybe I'm also afraid of something that's happening politically in my country and changes that might happen. Maybe I'm also afraid of some romantic situation. Maybe I'm also afraid of all these different things that are happening, but in the moment I get so locked in thinking that the fear is only coming from this. Or a better example, maybe the anger is only coming from this one thing. So just like FeelWhen, just like OneThing, you can make this step 1 or step 2 drill, focusing on yourself or another person, and you can also make it more complex. So when I think about my professional status, what's one thing that currently makes me feel proud? When I think about my professional status, what's another thing that currently makes me feel proud? When I think about my professional status, what's another thing that currently makes me feel proud? So this can help you narrow more specifically. Question 8 of 10. How did you come up with the name Emotional Combat? I can't remember exactly when it came about. I remember having a conversation with my friend Pavel in northern Uganda, visiting his organization Find Mind, and they do mental health for people in the rural villages. And I remember talking about how I liked the term emotional self-defense. It actually rolls off the tongue very well. And when I was running classes of it, I think I realized that attacks don't just happen once in a while. Like self-defense, physical self-defense is you might get mugged a few times in your life. And so emotional self-defense is we might get attacked, here and there, maybe a couple times per day. But at some point when I started to realize, I'm living across countries, I'm dealing with across time zones. I am interacting with so many different cultures, so many different people, so much uncertainty. It felt more like emotional combat. It was a fight. And the other thing, maybe this is the better route. I thought I got really good at responding to people with love. That was the essence of emotional self-defense. I feel attacked, I respond with love. And then in this one romantic relationship, I realized that a lot of times people feel attacked by love. What am I supposed to do if somebody feels attacked by love? I respond with more hate, or I respond with more indifference. And so I started saying to myself, what if I just attacked with love? What if I intentionally said, you know what, I am going to attack this person with love? And maybe not nuclear bomb them so it destroys them, but to try to be in this tug of war and pull the person out of the situation that they're in and realize and help them get more comfortable receiving love. And so that was a big part of it. It was kind of that combination of, wow, I'm dealing with so many different conflicts, I feel overwhelmed. And if I respond with love to somebody, they can feel attacked. Maybe that this is some type of combat, there is some type of fight that I'm trying to win, that I'm trying to help somebody and help a society move in a specific direction. So it became more of an overarching mission instead of something that might happen when I go to the bar. It's more of a all-encompassing scenario with defense and attack, maybe. Question 9 of 10. Is emotional combat about fighting against other people? Not fighting against. At least the way that I would define it is that it's about surviving because we have so many attacks coming at us, and it's about fighting for other people or fighting with other people. Not fighting with, like against, but fighting for them, wanting to help them survive and help them deal with what's going on in their lives. And so, again, how the framing might help me is when I feel overwhelmed, then I get into a more antagonistic mindset. Because often when I'm feeling overwhelmed, I'm actually disconnecting from the conflicts that are happening in my life. It's too much maybe, or I'm just not aware what's happening. And so I can lose my balance and my composure. And so when I pay more attention to my emotional combat, my myriad of conflicts that are happening, I can also see that other people are going through a lot of stuff. And when I recognize what they say, all the battles that someone's fighting, the invisible battles that you don't know about, when I recognize that, then I don't want to fight against them. I want to fight for them. I want to help them get out of the situation. And I think so much advice is, well, if somebody's going through something, that's their own thing, especially the advice in the West. Well, it's not their own thing. It impacts me. And the more people in society that go in a specific direction, it impacts society. If these people have positions of power, it could really impact society. So I care, and I'm going to fight. I'm going to fight for them. I'm going to help them survive. I'm going to help them thrive so they can get out of the situations they're in, so they can have more control of the situations they're in, more control of themselves. Because if I can do that, if I can fight for them and help them, and they can fight for me and help me, then maybe we're able to get through so much together. And I think a lot of times when there's kind of this fighting for, fighting against, or giving up on people, I've often talked about. And I think people hear combat maybe and think fighting against. It's not, it's fighting for, and it's definitely not giving up on people. So, last question. Question 10. How to stop feeling attacked in my life? Practice. Practice. Most of the times we don't practice this. I used to say it was almost like every time we had an interaction with somebody, it was the World Championships or it was the playoff. There aren't regular season games very often. There sure aren't a lot of practices. So practicing dealing with these different types of emotional attacks, rejection, guilt tripping, being ignored, being complimented, being loved, being given a gift, being given money. You don't have to do the gift giving or the money giving, but running through a role play, running through a drill to practice these things. And there's so many different ways to practice. I've come up with some, but I'm sure there are ways other people have as well. Even nowadays with AI, you could do a lot of things with asking different prompts, and AI can go back and forth with you, whether through text or through audio. So I think a lot of it is practicing, and also just realizing it's subjective. There's no objective attack. So often, the person who feels attacked doesn't realize that the other person doesn't think that they attacked them. So this is why I like running some attack scenarios in different workshops and trainings. And I'll try to do more on the podcast as well. Like rejection. Think of something you need help with, ask the other person for help. Other person say no and make it hurt. Then you respond with 3 steps. Step 1, truth. Step 2, fair play. Step 3, love. Go. And what I find when I run this exercise is that, for others and for myself, is that it's very hard to intentionally say no to somebody and make it hurt. We don't like doing it intentionally, being fully aware that's what we're doing. It can really hurt sometimes. And when I've run this in class, often after doing that, people will go, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't really mean it. I really want to help you. Oh, I can't believe I said that. Don't think I'm a bad person," especially if they just met the person. And I think the more that we practice receiving rejection and actually giving rejection intentionally or attacking in any way like this, the more we can realize that the person who is doing it isn't intentionally doing it. Whew. Reflection. That was fun. I almost like this a little more than doing the Ask Jim Anything episodes that I have on the Jim Kleiber Show podcast. Yeah, because it's a little more focused. It felt like I was in class again, like I was training and teaching people about some of the stuff that I've thought about so much. And as a former engineer, or maybe current engineer, if you count it, I don't know about identity conflict. I still design a lot of websites and still think like an engineer. I like the structured approach to it. I like being more explicit about different exercises and drills and theories and kind of ontologies, if you want to get all nerdy. So just different ways of structuring the information and ways to see the world. And so, yeah, this was fun. I mean, these were just questions that I've asked myself. So I'm really curious to see what questions other people will ask, whether it's more about the theory, whether it's more about the application to their life, whether it's more about different ways to train kind of emotional drills or maybe some physical drills to train on this as well, because there are things that I've been practicing. Whether people have suggestions on new things that I could try, whether they have, I don't know, if people want to talk about political things or if people want to talk about personal things, or I guess I'm very curious to see how this will land with people. I'm curious to see if this more structured approach will gain more attention from strangers on the internet, whether that's on YouTube or TikTok. I'm curious if people will be more likely to share this instead of just sharing Jim Kleiber Show, because maybe their friends don't know who Jim Kleiber is, but maybe this topic approach, this theme approach, will be something people are more excited to share, more comfortable to share. Yeah, I feel quite excited and not actually that drained. I think I'm surprised at how fluidly that went, and it was sad that I had to restrict some of my answers to 2.5 minutes. And so I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you have any questions, please send them my way. You can go to hq.jimkleiber.com. You can find the forum there. There's a section for emōkō HQ. And would love to hear more from you. And please share this, like it, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Take care, everyone.